Or notifications here, so interruptions. Okay. So we were driving all day yesterday from Ohio to Illinois. And typically, I aim for like a 3 to 4 hour drive. That's my ideal time because of the kids. They're in here all day, not running around, not playing outside. And then when we arrive, they get a little bit wild, but
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that
somebody wants to drive 6 hours.
it never goes as planned as you plan it. So,
Yeah.
4 hours turned into like 7 hours, and everything was just shifted. But that's okay. Just going with the flow. That's the great thing about this
It
life.
just turned into 11 p.m. bike rides in a Cracker Barrel parking lot too.
Yeah. So we're in a Cracker Barrel parking lot right now, and in Chicago. We're in Chicago, Illinois, and we're going to be here for a night, and then we're heading towards Colorado. Well, we're going. Our final destination on this trip is Colorado, so it's exciting. Bob, yes, the itinerary is subject to reality. That is true. That is true. Bob the legend. So this morning we're going to talk about masculine and feminine energies, and it's important to take a step back and just take the male female perspective out of this, right? Because all people have masculine and feminine energies inside of them.
Yeah, it's like the yin and the yang, the black and white, up and down, left and right. There's always an opposite to everything we know. And if we didn't have these opposites, then we wouldn't know our reality. So to know happiness, you need to know sadness, to know what scared feels like, you need to know what safe feels like. So none of these are bad or wrong, right or right, wrong, bad. It's just recognizing them and knowing when we're in balance and where we're not, and what that feels like for ourselves or in relationships. So we're going to be talking about our experience, right now that we are recognizing these things in our life, in our everyday life, and what that journey has been like with us, and still continues to be, applying this knowledge every day in our lives.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to just say that in this 20 minutes, we're not going to be able to go real deep. Like this topic is a good topic to dive into, take more time, understand everything. We're just going to be scratching the surface today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this stuff came into my awareness a few years ago, knowing what the masculine and the feminine energies were. And I've always known, right off the bat, that I definitely function off my masculine energy. I've always considered myself a go-getter, knowing what I want, doing it, and being very methodical and all in the head, all thinking, everything needs a plan, point A to point B, cut the bullshit, get to the point. That's always been my attitude with everything. So I've always known that I've been more in my masculine, and I've never considered myself a girly girl or, one of those girls. Yeah, I'm not into makeup and things like that. And so I've always, even in high school, I remember I sat with the football team and the baseball team, and I sat with all the guys. Being with girls I just didn't feel like I had a connection there with women, even though I grew up in a house full of women. I have 2 sisters and my mom, and my dad was the only man in the house, and he was usually working. So I actually grew up around a lot of women, but that didn't necessarily make me more in my feminine energy. So yeah, that's kind of my background like that.
Yeah, I guess you would call it feminine energy growing up. I was more in my feminine energy as a kid. I had 3 sisters, and I didn't really have. I was the youngest, so there wasn't much direction that I needed to provide. I really went with the flow a lot of the times, and that transitioned in my relational life. I believe, I really believe that I'm a more feminine man when it comes to my relational life. Because I've always been thrusted into my masculine in my work life and everything like that. So one thing that you should know about the masculine and feminine in relationships, and this is once again male and female, there's 3 types of what David Dita breaks down, right? There's a masculine essence, female or male, right, which they're more in their masculine. there's a feminine essence, female or male, or there's a neutral, right? So that it's like an even balance. And what happens is if you're a masculine essence, male or female, you attract the opposite, right? So it like if look at your own relationship, if you're a very masculine female or male, you're most likely attracting a very feminine male or female. And what I mean by that, I mean energies, right? So just look at the way they flow. The feminine energy, and we'll get into it a little bit, but the feminine energy is like creative, it's the passion, your intuition, that energy flow.
It's an inward energy. Yeah. Usually you go with the flow, and I consider like Mother Earth. It's a very feminine energy. Everything just flows, everything just functions. There's really not in everything there is structure and softness. So we're like the softness in the structure, where the masculine energy is the structure. And like for instance, a cup, right? The cup, the outside of the cup is very hard, it's rigid, it's what holds the water. We're like the space inside where the water inside the cup, that it can be poured out, it can be changed, it can be molded. Where masculine energy, like it's the structures, the walls, the foundation to everything else. And you need both, right? Because you can have all the things that makes the home feel like a home, but if you don't have walls and a roof, then you're exposed to all the elements. So we want both. And in everything, if you look at everything in life, literally everything has these energies, this yin, this yang, this feminine, this masculine. And then in our relationship, how did that look like the first few years or the past decade?
Yeah, no, so I think that it, like I said, relational, I'm more of a feminine energy man, and I always was very passive, right? I went with the flow. I always pushed all major decision making or any type of input to her. And
So typically if I ever asked like, hey, what do you want? It's always like, whatever you want. There was never input, there was never an opinion, there was never and at first I didn't mind. I was like, oh, that's cool, and then as time went on, I began getting frustrated because I was like, I'm asking because I want your opinion.
Yeah.
I want to know. And it was always like, oh, whatever you like. And I'm like, no, you have an opinion.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about like daily itinerary stuff. We're talking about parenting things. We're talking about things for the house. We're talking about things for us, right? Like she would do a lot of the planning. I would ask her, hey, what do you want to do on dates? Like I wouldn't take any type of initiative in regards to direction and things of that nature. And so in our relationship that deteriorated over time, because even though that she has always felt like more of a masculine type person, she wants to be led, right? She wants me to do those things. She wants me to coordinate date night. She wants me to go and do the trip, like for instance the trip that we did in Austin. That's something that I did, right? She wanted me to take that type of steps. And for the longest time, I know that this is like, I look at it now and I'm like, damn, why can't I just take that hint 9 years ago when we 10 years ago almost when we started, right? So that is something that you have to acknowledge, is that even and I use the female perspective, the females want to be led by males, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I mean that like we have to step in and take direction sometimes of just the basic things. Women want our opinion when it comes to parenting, right? They don't want to be the sole people that parent. We need to step in and provide feedback. And that's the big thing that affected my relationship with Jasil was I didn't do that. All my masculine energy was being used at work. Yeah. I was providing direction, clarity, and that structure at work. But when I came home, I just wanted to flow.
Yeah. So my realization, in all of this came that when I was single, it was our way to function, because that's what society has taught us, is don't tap into that feminine energy. That's bad. That's where, you don't become successful if you're not a go-getter, if you're not trying hard, if you're not doing it in this way, which is a very masculine way that our society, treats life every day. And we kind of just fall into that box. I fell into that box. So I was always in my masculine energy because I was like, this is what I have to do. This is the only way to be successful. If I'm not this, then I won't have that. And it's not true. Like we can still be successful being in our feminine energy. I mean, it's our essence, it's who we should be. And if you're someone who recognizes whether you have female or male body parts, that you flow more with the feminine, like it's fine to be more your feminine and using your masculine when it's necessary, to achieve something or somewhere where you need that structure. But don't forget that both are as good, both are needed. Just recognizing this and saying, oh, I realize when it comes to planning, I don't like to be the planner. I like my husband or my wife to do that, and that's her thing, and that's okay. And then maybe when it comes to other things like raising the children, like, oh, that's my thing, and you take charge there. One thing that I did for a really long time, and I realized it was completely out of integrity for myself. It's not something I enjoyed, was our numbers, our finances. Like I tracked the shit out of our finances for years. Like I knew everything that was going on in every bank account. When we opened up the business, same thing. You can ask me a number, this, what's going on here, there. And about 2 years ago, I let it all go. I was like, you know what? I actually hate this. Like, I actually hate this so much. I do not want to track any of this. I don't care. I told him, I was like, give me a budget, give me a card. Don't ask me any questions. I don't even want to know. Just make sure the bills get paid. And he's like, no, wait, like, what are you talking about? I don't want to do this.
Yeah. There's
And
a lot of things dropped on me.
Yeah. And I realized it was just like, I was in my masculine for so long. I was like, I don't want to do this actually. It does not interest me. And the only reason I did it was because early on in our relationship, he just didn't do it. And I was like, okay, if he's not doing that, I have to do it and I have to pick it up. And that's what happened, which granted, we're never forced to do anything. Like everything we do is our own choice. So I chose early on in our relationship that everything he wasn't doing in the sense of that masculine energy, I was going to pick it up and I was going to do it. So for many years, I was playing this role of the leader, the masculine in the family. But in reality, I really wanted to go down into my feminine and find that flow and find that grounding for myself. And I wasn't, because there was no time to do it, right? When I was with him, I was still the masculine. When I wasn't with him, I was still the masculine. And then with my kids, having children is what really started opening my eyes up to this feminine essence inside of me, right? Like nobody taught me how to be nurturing. Nobody taught me how to open up my heart. Nobody taught me, like, these were things that just happened in becoming a mother and having children and raising kids. And I noticed, I was like, all men don't have this knowing as we do as a woman. Like I remember with my first, and this only happened with my first, it didn't happen with my other kids. I knew all of his cries. I knew when his cry was for hunger. I knew when his cry was for sleepiness. I knew when his cry was for uncomfortable. Like I could literally hear the pitches were different pitches to me. And I would ask him all the time. I was like, can't you tell he's just hungry? And in my head, I was like, it's so obvious.
No.
And then later I realized, like, to him, it just all sounded like cries. Like they weren't different cries. And I was like, oh shit, that's something like I know and I feel, and that's inside me because I'm connected to this person in a way that no one else can be connected to them because they were inside me for 10 months. And I did not recognize my other children's cries like that. By that, it was just all cries. But with my first, I had that experience, and it was very beautiful to come back to that realization, and know that, that is very much my feminine qualities coming out and being highlighted in my life.
Yeah. I also think that it's important to say that, like, just because you're when you look at it from like a historical, like in our relationship, right? Me being more feminine in our relationship isn't like something that's just gonna always be like, because I've brought this to my awareness, I can focus on the areas to switch that, right? Switch that either to the masculine or even back to more neutral. For me, and this is a transition piece, right? Is like, let's talk about masculine and feminines when it comes to sex and relationship, right? So the masculine and the feminine energies, you want opposites, right? Because you build polarity. And when, for instance, in our relationship, and I'll be very candid about it, is like, when we first started, like the nice guy act it was sweet, right? You didn't mind. It was like so adorable. Like we were, like puppy love, right? And then once daily life came, that polarity started to come to neutral, right? And so when it's neutral, what happens is, especially in the bedroom, the chemistry, you're not having much sex, you're not connecting, you're not letting the energies really connect with each other and flow. And for maybe a year, 2, 3 years, like we weren't having much sex because of like that
Imbalance.
imbalance, right? And so it's important that we find the balance and we maintain that polarity, right? And when I say sex, I don't mean just happens in the bedroom, right? This is something that happens throughout your daily interaction with your spouse or significant other. And so that is something that I've shifted focus to within the last year, right? And I've seen so much change because I've understand these energies.
Yeah.
So it's important, like maintaining that polarity, right? And so
how do we maintain that now, and what are we doing?
well, I mean, it comes back to understanding that like me being in my masculine more, making more decisions.
So for instance, I have always planned every trip, everywhere we go, every day, like our daily schedules, with having kids and all of that. So he usually would just come home from work on a weekend, and I already had everything planned. Like, we're gonna go do this. Saturday night, we're hanging out with these people. Sunday is about this, blah, blah, blah. So he just went with my schedule. And about a year ago, he started staying home more because of our daughter, Linabelle. And I was like, okay, I don't need to do this anymore. So I started just like pushing these things to him. And I was like, okay, you can plan this. What are we doing this weekend? What about this? What about that? And he's just like, oh, like he wasn't, at first he was just like not doing anything. So
I wasn't embracing it.
No. So we were like staying home a lot. We weren't really planning anything, or plans would happen all scattered and late. And then like, the kids didn't, on time, and people were having bad moods and all this. So it was just like, it was a changing period, right? To where we had to adjust to the changes in life, where he used to be the working parent. Now he was at home with me, and we're both, stay at home parents.
Yeah.
And it was a big transition period. And at the same time, it was perfect because it allowed us all the time we needed to find the flow again. So we had kind of like a rift. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you bring awareness to this in your relationship and you start talking about this and you start changing dynamics, like you might go through a period where it doesn't feel good, or it doesn't feel right, or it doesn't seem like it's functioning, but just allowing that other parent or that other person time to figure out what energy they want to be in and where you flow in things you want to do. Like, I don't let him take charge of everything now just because of this. There's still things that I like to be in charge of. And I'm now more aware of that. And I can say that. I can say, you know what? I want to do this. I want to take lead in this. And then there's certain things where, he's like, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, cool, by all means, like, take lead. That's, your thing. But being more in my feminine energy, like, I've never felt like I was a creative person or anything like that. And because I tied creativity with artistic, like being able to paint or draw. But it's so much more than that. Like, we are all artists in one form or another. And maybe it's with words, maybe it's with your body, the way you dance. There's a million ways to be artists. And those are ways that I feel like I can tap back into my feminine energy whenever I'm looking for it. Is, through dance, through movement, through words. Yeah. How about you? How do you feel? How do you tap into your masculine? Do you feel like you need it?
I
How
think
do you use those energies in your life?
for me, it's just being more aware of the situation, right? I've never, I didn't bring much awareness to situations because you had all done that planning, right? So now, like, I asked the question, hey, I take that step and say, hey, do you want to take lead on this or me? And many times you said, hey, me. So then I just take that big deep breath, I think about how I want to structure this, and then I just get to work, right? And that's how I've always been. Is I'm a strategic thinker, so I try to think about things, forethought, and so it's really just taking a deep breath, trying to ground myself, right? That's my goal as a male, is like to be grounded, masculine male, and when shit gets tough, right? So like I can be congruent in everything that I do. So I just take that big deep breath. I envision how I want this thing to go, and then I do it. I will say also what's helped me be more in my masculine energy is I started working out a lot more, right? So like that boosts that there's so many more benefits. I did jujitsu for a bit. I plan to continue to do jujitsu as we start to travel and get in a location more often. And so just doing more masculine things, running, I've been running, which when I say masculine, I'm not talking about male and female, I'm talking about energies, right? So that's how it's helped for me. I just want to highlight, right? Remember that we talked about there's masculine essence, male and female, female essence, male and female, and then a neutral essence, female, male. And then with regards to relationships, you attract your opposite, right? And it's important to maintain that polarity. And then always you want to find the balance, right? You want to try to find the balance with the energy, like maintaining a balance within yourself, right? Not your relation. I might have confused some people. You want to maintain the balance within yourself so you can flow naturally.
Because then you'll attract the kind of partner you want. You know, if you're out of alignment, for instance, when we first met, he was very much in his, at least when it came to his relationships, he was very much in his feminine energy. Not saying that we weren't meant to be together, but if you're aware of this, then you know what you are looking for in a partner, and you can be more conscious in choosing who you end up with versus acting or being someone who you're not, for the simple fact of, oh, well, we're dating and it's the early days, so I'm going to be this way, when in reality, that's not how you act every day. You know, you might attract a person that it doesn't work out. So like if you've been in multiple relationships and 3, 6, 9 months down the line, it's like, oh, it didn't work out. Ask yourselves, like, what is it that I'm out of alignment, that I'm attracting people that I don't actually want to be with? And asking ourselves those questions, and even in friendships, you know, if we're not in our integrity and our authentic self, we're going to attract things that we don't really want without even knowing it. Because these energies are vibration, and vibration is what attracts people to you.
That was good. Like, some feedback that we received, keep, making it shorter. So I think that we've hit that threshold a little bit of time. As always, please comment, send us messages. Thank you for the responses and the topics that you were given. We're going to continue to do this on Fridays, and we're going to continue to expand and just tell you all how our story is, and how, where we've made a shift and coming closer, more conscious, more connected, and just more happier.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us here today. And if you didn't get to watch the whole video, it'll be up in our page after we're done. You can watch it from the start.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Yes, important so much.
What?
Important. This is so important.